So Module 6 is about probability of simple events. Okay. The title ng Module 6 would be about probability of simple events. Okay, sa simple events muna tayo, hindi pa tayo dun sa compound events. So when you're asked to get the probability of simple events, kung maalala nyo last time sa Module 5, we can describe the probability of an event that that would happen as pwede siyang impossible, unlikely, certain, unlikely, even chance, most likely, or certain. So those are the words that we use to describe a certain event. Like for example, the event that the sun would rise on the east, our answer for that would be certain. Okay? Kasi sure tayo, 100% that the sun would always rise in the east. And if you're asked naman to describe the probability when you're going to toss or to flip a coin, so what is the probability of getting a head, then you would say even chance. Kasi dalawa ang faces ng ating coin, head or tail. So we use those words to describe probability of simple events. But today we are going to get the percentage niya mismo, the fraction. Pwede din siya naka-express in decimal to show kung how likely an event is going to occur. Okay, so example natin mga simple events ay mga flipping of a coin. May makita kayong deck of cards mamaya, yun kasi ang ating gagawing example. So punta muna tayo sa mga konti lang ang elements ng sample space. Okay, so first we have examples here, like if you're asked to flip a coin, so flipping a coin, that is an example of an event. So if you're asked to flip a coin, all the possible outcomes, so lahat ng possible outcomes, all possible outcomes, ang ginagamit nating symbol for that would be, yan, that's a symbol for all possible outcomes, N of S. So all possible outcomes, kailangan nating listang all possible outcomes. Okay, we also have what we call all favorable outcomes. So we have the favorable outcomes, number of favorable outcomes. Number of favorable outcomes. Ayan. So example, ang event natin is when you flip a coin and getting a head or getting a tail. So ating sample space actually here, okay, for our sample space here, our sample space, really use S for this, which is denoted by S. So pwede natin siyang papakita na yung sample space natin would contain head and tail. So those are all the possible outcomes. Okay, when you're going to flip the coin, it's either you get a head or a tail. So kapag ilalagay natin yung number of all possible outcomes, number of all possible outcomes, bibilangin nyo lang ilan yan, 1, 2. So in symbols, N of S would be equal to 2. Yun yung number of all possible outcomes when you're going to flip a coin. And sa number of favorable outcomes naman, this is just like if you're asked about what is the probability, what is the probability of getting ahead. Okay, so sa probability of getting ahead, itong getting ahead, ito yung sa favorable outcomes na gusto nating makuha. So tingnan natin yung sa sample space natin. Okay, getting ahead, we only have, that's 1. Okay, so 1 ang ilalagay natin dito sa number of favorable outcomes. So ang ating number of favorable outcomes in symbols, that's N of E. Okay, E stands for the event. So ang event natin is getting ahead. So tingnan natin dun sa sample space, ang head ay isa lang. So 1. So when you're asked to get the probability of getting the head, or getting ahead in symbols, ito yon, probability of our event, and the event is getting ahead, that is simply N of S divided by N of E. Okay? In words, it is the number of all possible outcomes. Sorry, class, baliktad. In words, it would be the number of all favorable outcomes divided by the number of all possible outcomes. So that would be 1 over 2. Okay, in decimal, that would be 0.5. In percentage, that would be 50%. So that tells us that the probability of getting ahead would be 50%. Okay, pwede ding 1 half ang isasagot, pwede ding 0.5. Okay, so this is our formula that we would follow if you're asked to get the probability of a simple event. Ayan. Number of favorable outcomes divided by the number of all possible outcomes. And then you have to express it in its simplest form. Pwedeng naka-fraction, naka-decimal, naka-percentage. You would get the exact probability, okay, of the event that that would occur. Okay? Probability that an event would occur. Okay, yung event natin dito sa first example, probability of getting ahead when you're asked to flip a coin. So another example ng simple event natin, pwede tayong may example na like rolling a die. So doon tayo sa mga examples na common. Example number 2, when you are going to roll a die. So rolling a die. So when you roll a die, ang ating sample space here, sample space, so ang ating symbol for that is S. So when you roll a die, diba, ang die natin is three-dimensional figure, ayan, para siyang cube. It has 6 faces. Bawat face niya may corresponding dot. Say, isang face 1, isa 2, 3, hanggang 6 lang siya, class. Okay? Kaya doon actually sa test nyo, may mga nag-message kasi sa akin na, ma'am, baka mali yung nakalagay na correct answer para doon sa number na what is the probability of not getting a 7. Probability of not getting a 7. Sa Tagalog, ano daw yung chance na hindi 7 ang makukuha nyo. So automatic yung chance niyan ay 100% kasi sure naman na walang 7 dyan. So sure na kapag ka nag-roll ka ng die, walang 7. Okay? Kaya 100% doon. So marami doon ang medyo na trick sa question na yon. Impossible yung nilagay. Hindi naintindihan siguro yung not getting a 7. So hindi makakuha ng 7. So examples, rolling a die. Ayan. Ulitin natin yung example na yon. Yung sample space natin would contain 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 dots. Okay? Yun ang laman ng ating sample space. So, which tells us that the number of possible outcomes when you're going to roll a die would be 6. So, bakit 6? Binilang lang natin. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Kaya 6 ang nilalagay natin dito. Okay, yung N of S natin, that is in short of number of all possible outcomes. And of course, if our event would be, okay, kung ang tanong is, what is the probability of getting, doon na tayo sa available dyan, ha? Example, getting an even number. Okay, even number of dots. So what is the probability of getting an even number of dots? So tingnan niyo yung even number dyan. We have 2, 4, 6. Right? So ibig sabihin, ang N of E natin, okay, where E is our, favorable outcomes, number of favorable outcomes. So kung ilan yung even, dun sa ating sample space, ilan yan? So 1, 2, 3, tatlo lang siya. So in short, the probability of the event of getting an even number when you roll a die would be N over E divided by N over S. So that would be, N of E divided by n of s. So that would be 3 over 6. We simplify that. 3 over 6 is just 1/2. So that is 0.5, which is also 50%. Okay, so pina-follow lang natin itong, saan yung mouse ko? Follow lang natin itong formula na to. Okay? Number of favorable outcomes divided by the number of all possible outcomes. So it is very important na malalaman nyo muna yung lahat ng elements sa ating sample space. Let us have another event. So kahit mag-iba yung event natin, basta it's still under rolling a die, yung sample space natin hindi magbabago, 6 pa din siya. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So yung number of possible outcomes would always be this kapag ka rolling a die ang pinag-usapan. Na pagbabaguhin natin yung question like, what is the probability? Is the probability of not getting a 7. Okay? So, ang choices dito, hindi na yung impossible, unlikely, even chance, kundi kukuhanin na mismo natin yung probability. Okay? Probability of not getting a 7. So, what would be our, ano ngayon ang ating number of favorable outcomes? So, tingnan natin dun sa sample space. Okay? Ano yung hindi 7? So, not getting a 7. Tingnan yung mga numbers na hindi 7. Nabasa yung pad ko. Okay, ilang numbers ang hindi 7 dyan? Nakikita nyo ba mga hindi 7? Lahat sila hindi 7. Ibig sabihin, ang number of favorable outcomes natin ay 6 din. Okay? So, tingnan nyo. Check this out. This is not 7, not 7, not 7, not 7, not 7, not 7. Therefore, ang ating number of favorable outcomes would be 6. Silang lahat na ngayon. Okay? So, focus na tayo ngayon sa ating number of all possible outcomes and number of favorable outcomes. And of course, we still follow the same formula. So, yung formula natin would be that itong formula natin. Ayan, probability of the event is not getting a 7. So that would be n over e, no, not n of e rather, divided by n of s, where n of e is the number of favorable outcomes. Ito siya, 6. Lagay natin 6. And then of course, the number of all possible outcomes, ayun, 6 din siya. Yan, binilugan ko. So 6 over 6 is just 1. That's equivalent to 100%. Therefore, our answer for this, if you're going to describe that, the probability of not getting a 7 would be certain. Okay? Kasi ang certain natin, that is the word to describe 100% that it would truly happen. Okay? So, para sa number na yon, na ito yung tanong dun sa inyong summative test, kung maalala nyo, certain yung sagot natin doon. Okay? But for now, dito sa Module 6, ang mga hinihingi dito, class, is the percentage mismo ng probability that an event would occur. Okay? So, doon na tayo sa mga percentage or pwedeng naka-fraction, pwedeng naka-decimal. So, let's have another example. So, like if you're going to have this figure here. Okay? So, we have a box here filled with balls. My yellow balls and my blue balls. So, ang ating sample space dito, ang sample space natin, ayan, yan ang laman ng ating sample space. Okay? So, pwedeng hindi na natin ilista, bibilangin na lang natin. So, yung n of s natin, it would contain, ilan yan? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8. Okay? Let us now have an event na given. So, kung ang question ay, what is the probability of picking, okay, say naka-close yung eyes mo and then you're asked to pick a ball, just one ball. What is the probability of picking a blue ball? Okay? So yung event natin ay picking a blue ball. Therefore, yung number of favorable outcomes natin ay yung kung ilan yung blue balls. So, ilan yung blue balls? 1, 2, 3. So, ang n of e natin ay 3. And then, of course, we still use the formula. Probability of an event is simply the number of favorable outcomes divided by the number of all possible outcomes. So that would be 3 over 8. Okay, now si 3 over 8, hindi na siya masisimplify. 3 over 8 is just 3 over 8. So we can just express that in decimals and in percentage. You could use your calculator here para mabilis. So you can have 3 divided by 8. Okay, that is simply 0.38. So 0.38. So in percentage, that would be 38%. So ibig sabihin, there is a 38% chance that you are going to pick a blue ball. Okay, 38% lang kasi tatlo lang yung blue balls. Okay, now, if we're going to change the question like, what is the probability of picking a yellow ball? Kung gagawin naman natin siyang yellow ball, so ang ating number of favorable outcomes, yung bilang ng mga yellow balls natin. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So 5 naman ang halagay dito. Papalitan lang natin tong 3 ng 5. And then of course, pwedeng i-divide 5 divided by 8. Okay, so yung 5 divided by 8 natin, again, you can use the calculator. So 5 divided by 8, that would be 0.63 or 0.625. So in percentage, that would be 62.5%. So that is the chance in picking a yellow ball. Okay, now it's your turn. Ayun naman, dito tayo sa next na figure. Okay, next na figure. Ano yung ating number of favorable outcomes? Lagay sa chat box. N of S. Lagay sa chat box. Lagay sa chat box. N of S, 7, according to Overada. How about the others? Okay, bilangin lang natin yan, class, yung laman ng box. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Tama si Overada, 7. Okay, wala nang ibang sumagot. So if our question would be, what is the probability of getting a green ball? Okay, what is the probability of getting a green ball? So ang gagawin mo natin dyan, identify natin yung event and identify natin yung number of favorable outcomes. Ano yung number of favorable outcomes natin when you are asked to get a green ball? Si Awirada pa rin ba yung sumagot? 5. 5 daw. 5 ba, class? Tingnan natin ha. Green ball. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So tama siya doon, 5. So what would be the probability of this event? The event of getting a green ball? What would be your answer here? Okay, very good. 5 over 7. So, marami nang sumagot. 5 over 7 according to Lian and Nikki. Now, if you have a calculator, pwede nyo siyang i-convert into percentage. So, that would just simply be 5 divided by 7. Okay? Ayaw mag-divide. 5 divided by 7. Ayun. 0.71. So, ang 0.71 natin, that would simply be 71%. Okay, so this would be N of E, number of favorable outcomes, divided by the total number of outcomes. So, it's 5 over 7. Tama yung sinagot nyo. This is 0.71. So, in percentage, that's 71%. We'll round it off, ha? Kasi ano siya walang katapusan. Non-repeating, non-terminating siya ang kinalalabasan. Ayan. So, that's it. Nagets nyo na ba kung paano siya gagawin? Ayan. May mga nakagamit pa ng calculator. Good job. Overada, Mostrales, Mendoza. Okay, how about the others? Let's have another example. Okay, dito tayo sa baba. Okay, dito tayo. Ayan. Total number of outcomes. Dito, sa example na to, what is our N of S? 6. Okay, good job. 6. Yan, dami sumagot ng 6. 3 lang pala. Awarada Mostrales Domingo, good job. Ayan, say ang event natin, ang hinahanap is the probability of picking a red. Is that red? Picking a red ball. Okay? So our event here is picking a red ball. What would be the number of favorable outcomes? 3. Good job. Okay, Awarada Domingo Dalida Mendoza. 3. Okay, ang ating number of favorable outcomes. Then we just follow the formula. Probability of picking a red ball would be the number of favorable outcomes, kung ilan yung red ball, divided by lahat ng bola. Kung ilang bola yung nandyan. So what would we get? Good job. Okay, Mostrales has 0.5. Ganon din si Domingo. Awarades has 50%. That's also correct. Dalida says 0.5. Correct din. Pwede ding sumagot ng 1/2. Tama din yung sagot ni Mendoza. Okay, good job. So, siguro naintindihan na ng mga nakikinig. So, that's 3/6. That's 1/2. In decimal, that's 0.5 or 0.5. Pwede din siya na-express into percentage, 50%. Okay, punta tayo dito sa cards naman. Deck of cards naman yung gamitin natin. So sa mga hindi familiar sa cards, parehas tayo, hindi rin ako familiar dito. Nagiging familiar na lang ako dahil siya ay one of the common examples na laging binibigay kapag ang lesson would be about probability. So a standard deck of cards class contains 52 cards. Okay? It would contain 52 cards. So, ang N of S natin dito would always be 52. Okay, yung magbabago na lang dito, class, yung N of E, kasi depende sa event na lalabas sa bawat questions. So, aralin natin to itong mga cards natin. So, familiar sa cards natin, we actually have aces. Okay, may ace cards tayo. Ito yung mga common na pangalan sa mga cards. So may aces, we have jacks, queens, kings. Sila yung mga non-numerical cards. So hindi numbers na nakalagay sa kanila. Letter cards sila. Okay? So pwede silang tawaging letter cards. So example, kung ang question is, what is the probability of getting a letter card? Okay, so ang letter cards, yung may mga letters. So yung aces natin, yung jacks, queens, kings. So bilangin nyo silang lahat, yung may letter, divided by sa total number of outcomes, which is 52, and then you simplify. Okay, ganun na actually yung ginagawa dito. We also have, eto ang tawag dito, lagay ko sa gilid class ha. Okay. So maalala ko lang, okay, you can correct me if I'm wrong. Ito ay clubs. Dubs, mukha siyang dubs. Clubs yan. So kung ang tanong is, what is the probability of getting a club? Bilangin nyo lahat ng cards na may club. Actually, ito sila lahat dito na horizontal na nakahilera. 13-13 silang lahat dyan. Okay, 13-13. So mapapansin nyo, yung bawat hilera na ito, they are actually 1/4 of the total number of cards. O bakit triangle? Okay, sila ay 1/4 sa total na number ng cards natin sa deck of cards. Kaya kung ang question is about what is the probability of getting a club, laging 1/4 ang sagot niyan. Kung ang question naman is what is the probability of getting a spade, okay, yung spades natin ay 1/4 din siya ng population or 1/4 ng dami ng lahat ng deck of cards natin. So we could say 1/4 din. Okay, so pwede nyo nang kabisaduhin yung mga sagot dito. Say, kung ang question naman is probability of getting a heart, yung cards natin na may mga heart ay 1/4 din. Okay, ng total number of cards kasi 13 siya eh. So 13 divided by 52, that could actually be simplified as 1/4. And also yung huli, yung diamonds. Okay, sila din ay probability of getting diamonds would also be 1/4 kasi yung bilang ng diamonds natin ay 13. Okay, so may nakita kong sumagot dito sa ano natin. Ay, sorry, nawala ang aking screen. 16. Okay, number of face cards, yung sinagot ni Mostrales. Okay, dito tayo sa ating mga sample questions. Uy, bakit siya umangat? Sorry, where did it go now? Ayan. Like, what is the probability of picking an ace card from a deck of cards? So, sulat natin lagi yung kailangan natin. Yung, tawag dyan, number of all possible outcomes, it would always be 52. And our event is getting an ace. So, ilan yung ace natin? Yun yung bilang of favorable outcomes. Tingnan nyo kung ilan yung ace. May mga sumagot na, bibilis. Very good. Kailangan class, di ko na makita. Apat lang ba yung ace? Tama ba ako? Ayan, apat yung ace. So, therefore, yung probability nito, may nakikita na ako may mga sumagot sa gilid. That would be number of favorable outcomes divided by the number of total outcomes. May nakita na akong sagot. Tingnan ko. Hindi po siya 13 class. Hindi naman 13 yung ace eh. Ilan lang bang ace natin? Hindi 13 yung ace. Tingnan nyo class, oh. Ito lang yung ace, oh. Ayan, oh, 4. 4 yung nilagay ko. Ito lang yung ace natin, oh. Ito lang yung ace. Yan lang yung ace. Okay? Yung 13 class, yung clubs, spades, hearts, diamonds, sila yung standard na 13. But the rest, iba ng bilang. Example, yung aces natin, tiga-apat yan. 4 lang yan. Yung 2 natin, 4 lang din. Yung 3, 4. Okay, 4, 4 na to dito. Itong pa-vertical, puro na sila 4. So, depende na lang dun sa question. Kasi minsan yung tanong ay face cards. So, ano yung face cards? Probability of getting a face cards. Ito yung mga cards na may mga mukha. O, sino-sino ba mga yon? Si Jack, si Queen, si King. So, bilangin nyo kung ilan yon, yun yung probability, yun yung number of favorable outcomes nyo. Lagi siyang divided by 52 class. Pero hindi siya laging 13 ang numerator nyo. Okay? So, babalikan ko tong example na to ha. Like, probability of getting an ace. Yung ace natin class 4 lang. Ayan. So, that's 4 over 52. And then we could simplify that. Titingnan ko lang yung mga sagot ha. Ayan, sabi ni Mostrales 4. So, ang ating probability niyan, since ang numerator yung 4 is divisible by 4, 52 is actually divisible by 4. Kasi 52 class can just be taken by having your factors 13 and 4. So, 13 times 4 is 52. So, ibig sabihin, pag divide mo 4 divided by itself, that's 1. 52 divided by 4, that would be 13. Okay? Ayan. So, ang sagot natin for this class is 1 over 13. You can change it into decimal, you can change it into percentage. Okay, pero wag na natin i-change para marami tayong makover. Okay, punta tayo dito sa next. Number less than 4 from a deck of cards. So, ang ating total number of possible outcomes would still be 52. But yung number of favorable outcomes natin, hanapin natin kung ilan yung less than 4. Okay, so balikan natin. So, ano yung mga less than 4 natin dito? Okay, ito si 4 eh. Ito yung linya ng 4. So, less than 4 ay etong portion na to. Okay, ito lang. So, bilangin natin yan. Ilan yan? That's 2, 4, 6, 8. 8 sila. Okay, kasi less than 4 ang hinihingi eh. Probability of getting less than 4. So, 8 ang favorable outcomes natin. Of course, we follow the same formula. Probability of getting a number less than 4 sa deck of cards natin. So, favorable outcomes, number of favorable outcomes divided by all possible outcomes. Favorable outcomes would be 8. So, divided by 52. Okay? So, it's 8 divided by 52. Of course, we could simplify that. Pwede natin siyang i-simplify. So, they are both divisible by 4. 8 divided by 4 is 2. 52 divided by 4 is 13. So, it's 2 over 13. Okay? So, naka-fraction lang tayo. Face card. Okay. Probability of getting a face card. So, hindi magbabago ang ating number of all possible outcomes, 52 pa rin siya kasi ang deck of cards natin ay 52. Probability ng number of favorable outcomes natin sa ating event na getting a face card. Tingnan nyo yung mga face cards natin. Ito yung may mga mukha. Ito lang yon. Si Jack, King at Queen, ilan sila lahat? Sila ay 12. 12 sila, class. Okay? O, tama si Mostrales, 12. So, yan ang ilalagay natin sa number of favorable outcomes. Now, what would be the probability now of getting a face card? So, number of favorable outcomes divided by the total number of outcomes. Ayan. May nakita akong sumagot. Okay, 12 over 52. Naka-lowest terms natin yung sagot ni Rod. Tingnan natin kung tama. So, they are both divisible by 4. 12 divided by 4 is 3. 52 divided by 4 is 13. So, tama ang sagot ni Oberada. Good job. Okay, very good. So, it's 3 over 13. Okay, let's have number 4. Dito tayo sa number 4. A spade. Ayan, alam nyo na to, class. Ito yung sinabi ko kanina na kapag spade, heart, tsaka diamonds, pare-pareha sila ng sagot. Ayun, spade natin, 13 yan, diba? So, ang probability of getting a spade, o sino makaalala? Probability of getting a spade? Lagay sa chat box. 1/4. Very good, Owerada. Okay, class. Pag ang questions ay probability of getting a spade, a heart, apat to sila eh. Heart, club, what is the other one? Spade, heart, club, diamond. Okay, diamond. Ang sagot natin dyan, class, ay laging 1/4. Kasi yung diamond natin ay 13, yung spade natin 13, yung heart 13, yung club 13. Okay, and then lagi yung 13 over 52. And then we could simplify that to 1/4. So kung ang mga tanong ay yung shapes, kung shapes yung mga tanong, at isang klase ng shape lang, so 1/4 siya. Okay, pero kung ang ilalagay, class, what is the probability of getting a spade or a heart? So spade or heart, i-add nyo yung dalawang 13. So magiging 26 over 52 siya, so that would be 1/2. Kapag kadalawang shapes na ang nakalagay. Okay, pagkatatlo, so that would be 13 plus 13 plus 13 divided by 52. Okay, ganun lang siya. Pero kung pa single shape lang, like getting a spade, 1/4 yan, class. Okay, eto. Like itong sa number 5, gumamit siya ng or. So, getting an 8 or a 9. So, ipag-plus nyo lang lahat ng cards na 8 sa cards na 9. Eto sila. So, ilan lahat yan? That's 8. Right? So, the probability of getting an 8 or a 9 would be, so, ang ating number of all possible outcomes ay 52 pa din. Ang number of favorable outcomes, so 8 or 9 na card, sila ay 8. 8 pieces lang sila. Okay? Therefore, for this event, our probability would be 8 over 52. Lowest terms natin, 8 divided by 4 is 2. 52 divided by 4 is 13. Okay? So, take note of the word or. Kapag ka or, i-add nyo sila. Yung cards na 8, yung cards na 9. Okay? So, naintindihan ba ang ating discussion ngayon? Ayan, nagsagot si Domingo. Good job. 2 over 13. Okay, we still have a few minutes. Let's try to answer yung nasa what's more dyan sa inyong module. Okay, which is you don't have a copy, but kinat ko naman siya. Ayan, so makikita nyo dito. Nasa what's more siya. Try natin tong part 1. Okay, so spinner naman tayo. So looking at our spinner, it has 10 different numbers. Okay, different yan, magkakaiba yan. So a circle is divided into 10 equal parts to form a spinner. It is numbered as shown at the right. So nakikita ba yung spinner, class? Nakikita ba natin yung numbers? Yan, nilakihan ko na. Ayan, so when the pointer is spun, so ang pointer, example kung may pointer tayo dito, arrow, okay? kapag yung arrow daw ay pinaikot, ayan, what is the probability that it will stop at 7? Unahin natin tong letter A. Probability na sa 7 siya titigil. Okay, so ang gagawin natin dyan, class, is, of course, yung ating total number of outcomes dyan would always be 10. Bakit siya 10? Kasi bilangan nyo yan, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 10 ang lahat ng numbers niya. 10 silang lahat. Okay, so ang kailangan nyo lang kukuhanin yung number of favorable outcomes. So for letter A, ang N of E natin dyan, hanapin nyo kung ilan yung 7. Ilan ba ang 7, class? Ilan ang 7 na nakikita nyo? Isa lang. Okay, isa lang nakikita ni Owerada ni Mostrales. Isa lang din nakikita ko dyan. So tama tayo dyan sa isa. 1. Therefore, ang probability of this event would be, who would like to answer? What would be the probability of that event? 1 over, fraction lang para mabilis. Okay, sabi niya Owerada 10%. Okay, naka-percentage siya. Tama naman, 1 over 10, 1 over 10, or 10%. Napakahusay. Okay, 1 over 10 or pwede tayong sumagot ng 10% kung naka-percentage siya. So, hindi na magkasya. Okay, letter B. Probability of getting a prime number. So what would be our N of E here? Number of favorable outcomes. Prime number, they are numbers that have the only factors of itself and 1. So, ang lowest prime number natin ay 2 lang, class. So, ano yung mga prime numbers natin dyan? Ito si prime numbers natin, ha. Start tayo kay 2, and then 3. Okay, sila yung ang factors ay sarili lang nila tsaka 1. So, 2, 3, 5. Sino pa? Si 7. Okay? So, ilan yan, class? It's 4. O, may sumagot na. Sumagot na si Sam na 2 over 5. So, ang number of favorable outcomes natin ay 4. Therefore, ang probability natin dito would be 4 over 10 or 2/5. So, tama yung sagot ni, lalagay ko na ang class ha, hindi na kasya eh. So, 2/5 yung ating sagot. Bakit percentage? Okay, 2/5 ang ating sagot dito sa letter B. Okay? Good job, Dalida. Punta tayo sa next. A number between 5 and 10. So, 5 tsaka 10, number daw between them. Ano bang numbers between 5 and 10? We have 6, 7, 8, 9. Meron ba tayong 6, 7, 8, 9 dyan? Is this our 6? Is that our 6? 7, 8, 9. Okay, ganun pa din yung sagot natin, 2 over 5. Tama si Dalida. Kasi apat pa rin sila. So, 4 over 10 is just 2 over 5. So, 2 over 5 pa din sa letter C. How about letter D? A number less than 10. Probability of getting a number less than 10. Tingnan nyo, ilan yung less than 10 dyan. Okay? Kailangan mahanap nyo muna si N of E nyo. Okay, 9. Tama si Mostrales and Domingo. Oy, sinagutan na ni Owerada 90%, which is correct. Okay, kasi ang number of favorable outcomes natin ay 9. And then we use the formula. So we have 9 over 10, which is 90%. Okay? O, may sumagot na din sa letter E. Napakahusay. It's okay, Graham, I understand. Okay, Dalida, 0. Yun na ba sa letter E yan? Sam? Very good. Kasi walang negative number, automatic yung probability nito ay 0. Perfect square. O, tingnan natin sino nakakaalala ng mga perfect square numbers natin. Probability of getting a perfect square number. Sabi ni Sam, 1 over 5, 1/5. Let's try to check what are our perfect square numbers. 1. 1 times 1 is 1. We have 4. 2 times 2 is 4. We have 9. 3 times 3 is 9. Tatlo lang, class. So, ang NOV natin ay 3 lang. Therefore, ang formula natin, ang probability of getting a perfect square would be 3 over 10. 3 over 10 po. Okay? 3 over 10 po tayo dyan. Ang perfect square numbers kasi natin ay tatlo lang. Okay, bakit perfect square si 1? Because it's from 1 times 1. Si 4, it's from 2 times 2. Si 9, it's from 3 times 3. So you can write that as 1 squared. You can write this as 2 squared. You can write this as 3 squared. Kaya sila perfect square numbers. Okay, it's already time. So I hope you've learned something from our lesson today. I'm going to minimize this para dun sa mga gustong mag-screenshot. Ayan. Okay, yung cards kasi complete solution natin, kaya maganda i-screenshot yan sa cards. Okay, okay na to. And of course, etong sa ating mga, hello. Ayan. This portion here, nag-complete solution din tayo.